Okay, I guess I'm ready to start. My topic is anarchism, and I won't rest until you're all a bunch of anarchists, because I'm convinced that that's the last best hope for mankind. When people first hear of anarchism, they say, oh my God, let me out. Which way did I come in? They think of bomb-throwing, weirdo. I'm weird, but not bomb-throwing weird. Anarchism, if you look at it etymologically, the prefix A means against, like Anabaptist is against Baptist, I guess, and anarchist is against archy. So what is archy? Well, archy is arbitrary rule. For example, monarchy is arbitrary rule by one guy, the monarch. Oligarchy is ruled by a few. Democracy, or demoarchy, democracy, is ruled by the majority. There is this philosophy called legal positivism, which infects some people, according to which, unless the government does it, it's not right, or only government action can justify things in political philosophy. I warn you against this. This is not a good view to hold, because it commits you to all sorts of things. I mean, it commits you to not being able to say, well, the government said it, but is it right? Because if you're a legal positivist, you have to say, well, the government said it, therefore it must be right, which is crazy, because surely governments can do wrong things. Now, the most popular form of archy, or statism, is democracy. So let me say a few nasty things about democracy. My buddy Hans Hobby wrote a book, Democracy, the God That Failed. I advocate you reading that, except for that one footnote where he attacks my views on immigration. Just ignore that. Hitler came into power as a result of a democratic process. It's true he didn't win a majority, but he won a plurality because there were three major parties. But it was as democratic as it gets. So if you think that just because something is democratic, it's therefore justified, then you have to favor Hitler, which is problematic. There are two ways that we can deal with each other. Devin over there has got a nice shirt, t-shirt, and I want it. And there are two ways I can get it off of him. One, I can say, hey Devin, I'll give you $20 for it. He says, no, I'll say $50. He says, no, I'll say I'll be your best friend forever. Or I'll wash your car, or something. Any voluntary act. And that, I contend, is a civilized way to deal with people. The barbarian way, the barbaric way, is I come up to him with a gun, and I say, give me that t-shirt or I'll plug you. One is voluntary trade agreement, consent, contract. The other is coercion. Now, my claim is that what government is, in its essence, is the latter. It's not civilized, it's barbaric. It compels people to do things against their will. I'm talking about innocent people. I'm not talking about defense or something against a rapist or a murderer. The government is an armed bunch of thieves and robbers and thugs. That's all they are, but they've got good public relations. I'll consent to that. Look, suppose a group of people breaks into my house and they're about to steal my TV. They're a philosophical robber gang, so they're ruining the dialogue with me. And I say, hey, tut, 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 that's my TV, what are you doing? And they say, oh, not so fast. We're a Democratic gang. And they have an election. And they say, well, how many people want to take Block's TV? And the three of them raise their hand. And then, to be fair, because they're Democrats, they say, well, how many people oppose it? And I raise my hand. They say, okay, 3-1, democracy, majority rules, we're taking your TV. So democracy is no defense against coercion, against the violation of the libertarian non-aggression axiom. I come from a point of view when I'll be defending anarchism, it won't be defending left-wing anarchism or socialist anarchism where they're, I don't know, a bunch of hippies and they're against money and all sorts of weird things like that. I think that John Clark here is a left-wing anarchist. I'm a libertarian anarchist, which is very, very different. The libertarian anarchist is based on the libertarian philosophy of non-aggression and private property rights. Now, to return to Devin Sneed, suppose I just grab his t-shirt. Have I violated his rights? have I committed aggression against them? Not so fast, because it depends upon who is the rightful owner of the T-shirt. If he stole it from me yesterday, and I'm just repossessing it today, then he's the bad guy, I'm the good guy. So you also need a theory of property rights, which in the libertarian John Locke, Hans Hoppe, Murray Rothbard view stems from homesteading. You own yourselves, you mix your land, your labor with the land, unowned land, virgin territory, you get to own it. Then any property is traceable to homesteading plus any legitimate title transfer, which would be trade or gift or gambling or anything like that. So we have a libertarian philosophy, and the libertarian philosophy says that you're not supposed to commit aggression against non-aggressors. And it says that aggression is defined in terms of property rights. Anyone who murders or rapes me is a violator of my property rights, because I own me, or if anyone steals my watch. And my claim is that government is incompatible with this sort of a thing. So how would anarchism work? How would free market anarchism work? Well, it's hard to say because it's very difficult. I mean, if shoes were nationalized and some weirdo was saying, well, the government doesn't have to run shoes, we could have it privately run, everyone would start saying, well, how many shoe stores would there be on each block? Or how would we determine if there are red shoes or blue shoes? And how about shoelaces? Would the shoelaces fit the shoes? And it's hard to anticipate. So what I say is that how it would work has to be taken with a grain of salt, because we don't know for sure how it would work, because we've never really had it in the full panoply that it could have existed. But the usual problem is, for a group of economics students, we don't really have to get into, well, how would we get food, clothing, and shelter? You know, we would buy and sell them and trade like we do under a free enterprise system. We wouldn't have all sorts of government interference. But the question comes about, well, suppose somebody hits somebody, or suppose I take Devin's shirt, and how do we determine that? Well, based on history, one of the, we do have precedents for private law courts. The people who espouse this, such as myself, offer the following scenario. There would be courts and police companies, private, and they would determine who is right in my dispute with Devin over his T-shirt. Now, suppose Devin and I are having a squabble over the T-shirt. And Devin goes to Bill Barnett and he says, well, Bill Barnett is my adjudicator. And I say, Bill Barnett, I mean, you know, he's biased, he's a bum, he's a legal positivist. I'm not going to go to his court. He's not even good looking. So I go to the Dan D'Amico court. Dan's a former student of mine. I think he'll be my buddy. He'll support me maybe. Now, if each of us, when we go to a court, we oblige ourselves, we obligate ourselves to abide by whatever the court says. Now, if both courts say that Devin is right, well, I'm in trouble because they each have a police force and they're going to come get me if I go to court and then I won't abide by the decision. So if both courts agree with him or with me, there's no real dispute. There's no problem. Now, it's possible that Dan will turn against me and agree with Devin, and Bill Barnett will favor me. I doubt that, but it's possible. But let's take the more realistic case that the court that I go to favors my side, and when we invite Devin to come to the Dan D'Amico court, he refuses, and the Bill Barnett court, I refuse to go there, and Bill Barnett finds in Devin's side. Now what? According to Ayn Rand, this is sort of a problem, big problem with anarchism for her. Well, the answer is there are two kinds of courts. There are legitimate courts who have anticipated just this sort of a thing and have acted in a rational way to solve it. And then there are bandit courts who either haven't anticipated this or have anticipated it and say, well, the hell with it, we'll just fight. Well, let's take legitimate courts. If Bill Barnett and Dan D'Amico are legitimate courts, they will have anticipated this sort of a thing. And they'll say, in case of a dispute, if we ever find ourselves on the opposite side of an issue, we'll go to the John Levenda's court. And he will decide. And we both agree that John Levenda's is a good guy and fair and judicious. And that's it. Whereas if a court refuses to do this, court-police firm refuses to do this,